welcome to this latest edition of ABNcast, the podcast brought to you by Aviation Business News. My name is Lee Hayhurst. I'm the editorial director at ABN. Joining us on today's podcast is Jeff Lennon. He's the Senior Vice President for Border Controls at Amadeus. Amadeus, for those of you who don't know, is an extremely large European-based but global IT and technology developer for airline industry, but also more widely and more broadly the travel industry. Hence the interest in airport technology, which is what we'll talk about today. So, Jeff, thanks for joining us on ABNcast.
Thanks, Steve, for having me. Really glad to be here.
Good to see you. Just give us a broad introduction then into what is going on, in particular with airports, with the technology they're looking to bring in. Everyone's looking for digital transformation these days. So, what are the big key areas that airports particularly are looking at?
Post-pandemic world, some things that were nice to have before, maybe not at the core, even though many airports had to go through different challenges when recovering and going through security queues, border queues again. What we have been doing for many years, trying to support them, but yet failing to demonstrate the business case industry-wide before the pandemic, is now becoming very tangible. So what the technology in terms of automation, self-service, digitization, biometric technology, digital wallets, all the arsenal of the digitization, modernization programs in the airport space in combination with airline now becomes a reality. So we are happy to face different programs around the world with a lot of motivation in terms of implementing them well. The technology is proven, the technology is mature. Where the industry stands really is to bring adoption. We are very focused on customer success and bring it to scale. We are way beyond pilots, proof of concept, proof of value. Now it's time really to deliver the business case in practice, basically. And it's
we'll spend most of this discussion looking forward, I think, because this is the kind of topic where you do look forward. But you mentioned COVID, and it's worth just starting by giving that a bit of context. So obviously there was a 2-year period when airports were very quiet. The idea of investing in technology was probably not high on the agenda during that 2-year period. But was it, looking back now, was that a 2-year period where the industry had time to, very unusually, had time to take stock a little bit, to reassess, to plan for the future in a moment when you weren't actually delivering for today because there wasn't much to deliver on that time?
Indeed, and that's very true. It was a chance for us to pause a little bit as well, for once, which is usually not the case, reflect, reshape, and have the luck to have customers, partners that were in the same mindset. They saw it as an opportunity to rethink and maybe go a bit bolder and further into the initial plans they had. So we have a few partners, namely an airline, very well known in the Middle East, starts with an E, that is also operating most of one of the biggest airports in the world, that took the pandemic as the opportunity to really move from experiment to scale up. And more recently, a few weeks ago, they just announced that actually they are reaching scale in the entire terminal using biometrics and full automation. And that's amazing. So that's one example. Yeah, definitely some customers took the chance to pause with us, reflect. Obviously, the whole hassle of the digital certificates gave us a chance to further establish some foundations also in terms of digital identity, wallets, how to bring different credentials together to help facilitate the journey. So that has been beneficial at the end, I must say, reflecting back and preparing us for moving to the real deal, meaning going at scale.
That's a really interesting use case that came out of the COVID period in particular, because digital identity and checking certificates, there's all these rules suddenly popped up. It was a time that hopefully never happens again, but it was a really interesting case study in how to deal with different rules and regulations, which still exist today, but they don't come up so quickly. You don't have to react quite so quickly. So what came out of COVID was, like, actually, we've been talking about digital identity for a long time, and we knew it was going to come. But what COVID did was say, actually, we should do this now. If we can cope with COVID, it can cope with anything. So that probably that accelerated people's thinking, did it?
Definitely, and it was also an accelerator and a wake-up call, a little bit positively speaking, for some of the organizations that have a very prominent role in defining the frameworks. I'm thinking about IATA on the airline side, the Wine ID initiative, ICAO, and the digital travel credentials, so the digitization of passports. They had a plan, they had a standard in view, but now it's accelerating in terms of release. The industry, the private sector is expecting this to happen. Governments are moving forward. Digital IDs are popping up everywhere, digital driving licenses. So all the credentials that we deal with on a daily basis are becoming more tangible. And you can see initiatives popping up all over the globe. Apple, Google are finally moving full force into it as well. So there is momentum, definitely.
Yeah. The other aspect, which was very much a COVID-related factor, was the need to sort of almost be contactless. You said self-service. That was obviously very key during the COVID period because you were trying to stop people interacting. So that was another aspect that was already going to happen anyway, but it became a necessity, didn't it? So I'm sure great leaps forward were made.
Indeed. I mean, the traditional trying to solve the security facilitation equation and find the balance, which we believe pre-pandemic, most of the large industry players and some smallers have achieved a certain level of maturity. But then you have the hygiene, indeed, kicking in a third dimension and giving another sense to contactless, to self-service, minimize exchange of documents, of tokens, of contacts with human. That has been also a transformational element to further excite the business case of contactless, definitely.
Yeah. You mentioned a minute ago a particular partner beginning with E. Maybe we might, I think we'll locate them somewhere in the Middle East. I'm sure everyone knows who we're talking about, who are particularly forward-thinking on this, so really are sort of pioneering, leading the way. There are others around the world. What are you seeing in terms of the pattern of adoption? Do you see it's a regional thing where there's certain regions which are really embracing this for various reasons specific to their area? Is it particular airports itself within regions?
Well, I think there is an overall spirit in some regions where definitely there is more propension and ease for them to deploy the technology at scale. And these are often the best examples of multi-stakeholder collaboration. They are not doing this alone. So the industry is involved, but the government is involved. The government understood in most of those countries that they have to play a role in terms of identity management as a service providing. They are providing that as an asset. It's hosted on their side. And then the airline or the airport can benefit from that, not having to deal with the stress and the anxiety of holding biometrics. The government is in charge, and what more natural at the border, namely. And then the airline can leverage on that and scale it. So that's really a culture and working together in a different fashion, in a different objective, having really the passenger at the middle. And to scale programs, the airline is definitely the most important channel. Digital, check-in, mobile, web. That's why you capture the traveler. We are in the B2B business in our context, but we should all of us have the B2B2C approach and constantly think about the traveler. And if we work towards that, definitely then you can start to see results and impact in terms of operations and cost management and benefits for the travelers.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot. We'll get into what it looks like in terms of the collaboration of the ecosystem, which is going to be key for anything like this to really work. But I guess in terms of where you're seeing progress, anywhere where there's a new airport, anywhere where there's a new terminal. So these things are huge investments. You want to be future-proof. You don't want to be opening a terminal and then in 5 years' time it's already behind the times and redundant. And of course, there are certain parts of the world we know that are investing heavily in this area. Dubai is clearly one, the new airport coming on stream there. We're looking to what's going on in Saudi in the next 5 or 10 years. I suspect some of this really cutting edge technology is where we're going to see in those parts of the world that are really going to adopt this quickly and that's where we're going to see sort of the customer experience transformed, isn't it, over the next sort of 5-10 years?
Most definitely. Those regions and a few others. I'm thinking about Asia Pacific. You have a new airport coming in Vietnam, a major program. Greenfield airports is an amazing opportunity to work very early stage with architects, designers, people that define the airport of the future to make sure they don't build their foundation on more of the same.
Yeah.
The square meter price is increasing. We don't want to build cities. We want an airport that is effective, efficient, but also a place for entertainment, a family moment, something more humanized, and that's where technology can kick in and support the initial design. And contactless, biometrics, automation can really help better utilize the P&L of the investment in terms of capital and how you project the profitability of the site. And we are very much involved in making sure we can be at the early stage because we understand how the technology will really have a big impact. You know, the vision of one of those programs in Saudi is that at the end, the airport is only a boarding area. You have done border control offsite. You have done security offsite. Your luggage is taken from home. Yeah. You reach the airport and maybe you go to the cinema, you go to the movie, you get a massage, you go for shopping. And by the way, you will board your plane. That's the ultimate vision. We are not yet there, obviously, but that's very exciting for us to be able to work on those programs.
Talk to us about what Amadeus's role in this is and the strategic approach Amadeus is taking. Obviously, we all know you as a company that has been very involved in the distribution side of things, obviously technology, running airlines. This is clearly very related to that. And it's a growing area for Amadeus. You invested last year in a company called Visionbox, a multi-$100 million purchase. I think they were based in Portugal, weren't they? They're a Portuguese-based company that do biometrics for airports and airlines. So what does Amadeus see as being its key role in this?
I mean, obviously, considering the legacy in the positive way of Amadeus in the airline space, the number of travelers we are boarding every year, close to 2 billion-ish travelers that we process for checking and boarding, the distribution, the booking systems. We already had an airport IT ecosystem through a few acquisitions and internal portfolio development, then the acquisition of ICM and then Visionbox, more recently Hermes in the API, PNR data space. So basically we want to connect the dots. We want to connect to the stakeholders, have the different bricks. We do not pretend to be able to do everything. It's also about partnerships with small, medium, large size players, connecting the ecosystem. But we have that vision of an open platform, a connection platform where we can connect in an open way all the different assets to create that value, to break the silos, to be the glue in between the different chapels, I would say, or churches that you can find in that space and bring them together in a way that finally they agree to share information. They understand the value. And that's fundamental. So we are very keen to maximize this.
Yeah, because as we said, this is all about providing that fabled, frictionless or seamless, those words that mean a lot, but are difficult to define sometimes, but provide that experience to the end customer. Obviously, in the aviation and travel industry, there's always different players involved. And often they compete and they cooperate at the same time. So there can be friction there just in the very nature of the industry. So do you think there's a level of cooperation now emerging whereby in the end the result will be that it is optimized for the customer rather than being optimized for the various business models that are got a vested interest in this?
I think we are really reaching that stage in different places in the world. There are a few role models. We are working with some of them, obviously. Again, post-pandemic, the chaos in reopening airports, some air traffic control limitation on airports themselves asking for limitation because they think they had no capacity, reinventing themselves, creating new bridges of collaboration, government being more involved, Chapter 11s. I mean, a lot of things happened that really moved the establishment and the principles on which they were working with before. And I've witnessed in many occasions a data sharing pact in practice, obviously with all the the legal framework around that and how it should work to make sure that airport can better anticipate, manage disruption. And we are very interested in making sure they can manage disruption, quick turnaround. If there are delays, how do you reshuffle the transfer to make sure you make it under 45 minutes? Real-time communication, partnership with the government. You have the very recent example of the entry-exit system of the Schengen stays that has just been entered into operation on the 12th of October. We have seen a bit of press here and there that it was difficult, but still well prepared, a lot of collaboration. There is no choice. I mean, if we want this to work, there is no other way. Those that are a little bit more reluctant or resistant, at some point, they will have to change their approach for sure.
Yeah, I can see certainly irregular operations there's a key potential win here, because that is where often the problems occur for passengers. It's often bags are a massive point of anxiety, getting to and from airports, etc., delays. So if this in this new world, both airports and airlines can work more collaboratively on irregular operations, you can see a huge win there for the industry to just address those anxieties we all have when we travel. Even if people who do it all the time, we always have that anxiety until we get to the airport and the bag's gone. We always worry that there's a big queue or something like that. So the future vision of an airport experience, what does that look like? Is it a queueless, entirely contactless experience, all through biometrics?
Well, I mean, let's be realistic. Biometrics won't be everywhere. Right, it can't be applied to all cases, all populations, all demographics. Some countries, some cultures are more open to it. The latest IATA passenger survey that was just revealed last week during their World Symposium proved once again that the statistics are positively increasing in terms of willingness to use digital identity and biometrics. Still a bit of concern on data protection for sure. The future will be mobile. Bring your own device. It's the extension of your body. The more you can do off airport, the better. The more you come prepared. And then those one-time travelers at different ages, different moments of their life, they will need the human touch. They will need some support. So the airport will be able to refocus on value-added tasks rather than managing disruption, because it has been already orchestrated. The orchestration, for me, is the key. We really see the airport as a very nice melody you need to play. You have a maestro, you have very different instruments. How do you make sure it's a nice harmony? That's what we are dedicated to contribute to. Biometrics, the adoption of digital documents will help scale different fashions, different flavors, depending on the legal framework. We see that definitely Europe is a little bit more tense towards the usage of biometrics because of GDPR, the AI Act. These are all fundamental pillars we need to have to protect sovereignty and the data of people. But I think there are other countries which still respect exactly the same principles, but they see a different opportunity, and you see that the option is different. That's why I think that there is still a need for a better harmonization and standardization.
Yeah.
And communication.
Does this require huge amounts of investment? I mean, I suppose particularly retrofitting some of this stuff into older facilities, that's going to require money and investment. And so is the rationale that actually this both saves you time, saves you costs, so therefore it does pay for itself in the longer term, but actually also potentially it increases revenue opportunities as well. So it's okay, it's an upfront cost today, but there's a real business rationale for this going forward.
Definitely. First, I think all the industry players have understood that if they want to implement the technology, they cannot just come to an airport and rip off everything that the airport has invested in for the last 2, 3, 5, 10 years. There is an estate, it being amortized, it's still valid to be utilized, and indeed we can retrofit it to make it biometric capable. That's technically completely available today. Then it's the question of open standards, making sure things can interoperate. The interoperability aspect, it's our joint responsibility in the industry to make sure we can work together and give the value back to the airport and ultimately the passengers. More than that, the benefits are way beyond cost optimization. We have seen concrete metrics on some programs where the implementation of the program, if well implemented, well adopted, I'll give you an example, can bring down on-time performance by 3 percentage points better. That's massive impact at the scale of a large airport. People that spend much less time, obviously, at the border or at security will obviously spend more time in the duty-free. If you see the numbers of some of the biggest airports that are very effective, Dubai is one example. The P&L of the duty-free is gigantic. But I live in Dubai now. I don't even think about the stress I will have at the airport. I know that from the entrance to the gate, it will take me maybe 15 minutes, and it's guaranteed no matter the volume. And the way back is the same. And it becomes very predictable. So then it creates expectations. Is it the same at the next destination and my next stop? And being all of us heavy travelers, we can really benchmark that and provide feedback to our teams and share with customers business cases. I think we are in a fantastic momentum in the industry, and we are extremely excited to connect the dots, really.
Yeah, you used a really interesting word there when you said it's predictable. This is what a lot of this technology is all about. We've just come back from our own conference, which we run for the airline industry, called the Predictive Aircraft Maintenance Conference. And obviously, that's all about predicting the things that's hard to predict, or, you can predict, but if you've got the right data. And then if you do that, you provide a better service, there's less aircraft go tech and so on. But that same philosophy is being applied to the airport, where predicting of queues, predicting of pinch points, trying to predict what would happen in the event of something going wrong, a weather incident, etc. So you see, I think you're going to see airports doing a lot more of this as well, aren't you? So just trying to sort of soften the peaks and troughs of the unknown that is inevitably going to come along in the future.
Indeed, and then straight to my mind comes the example of Schiphol Airport, Amsterdam, which has been through tough times just after the pandemic, long queues, big issues. They have done heavy work, heavy lifting. We are partnering with them in some of their technology stack. And what I've witnessed now more recently, and it was shared on stage at a conference in Los Angeles a few weeks ago by the CIO, obviously they are using digital twin to simulate, predict, anticipate. They brought some airlines on board really to exchange crucial information to have real-time capacity to adjust to disruption. They've built tooling that we were completely amazed to see, and that in almost near real time, they can predict how the plane will arrive, if they need to redirect to a different gate, how to make sure those travelers won't miss their connection. And it's really about collaboration. The technology, again, was already there a few years ago, but the mindset and the appetite to partner and to find compromise is very different, and that delivers the result.
Yeah, this construction of a virtual world for airlines and airports, called in these digital twins, which it's happening as we speak, because there's a real use case for it. It's a B2B use case at the minute, but obviously it is a metaverse of sorts, but it's a very useful metaverse for when you are operating such a large, logistical, technically difficult operation. People maybe don't appreciate how difficult it is to run an airline, but also to run an airport and have those two things working in tandem. So is modern technology, is the great promise that these large, difficult and complex organizations do operate more seamlessly together. And if they're doing that, then the customer experience naturally is better.
No doubt. Definitely. And more we are using modeling. We project how the solution will impact the real operation. We use real-time data, statistical information that the customer share with us to demonstrate, yet in a digital way, here is the estate today, here is your operation, here is the flight schedule. Now, if you implement this, do it like this, do it like that. Look at the experience, the design, the flow. We are involving ourselves much more into a consulting capability in terms of experience design. We have developed some modules to really support customers from the early stage design throughout implementation, adoption, to make sure every millimeter of the solution is maximized in terms of flow, engagement, customer activation. What are the channels you need to attract the traveler? What is effective in terms of communication, different cultures for all type of travelers? And that's where we are really getting much more results. I'll give you an example of a small program that has been resonating in industry. It's taking place in the Caribbean, in Curacao. Very small airport, 2 million travelers, constrained estates. They cannot build more. And at some point, they have 8, 9, 10 flights at the same time, meaning 2,000 travelers in the terminal. They had queues in the streets on people departing or in the stairs arriving. And we worked with the Ministry of Justice, with the Curacao Airport partners, the holding for more than 2 years, designing a program to use digital wallets to pre-register travelers for their border check, with the ambition, the dream to have a 15 minutes from the border to the beach, leaving the airport and we are very close. But the experience design substantially helped, because indeed, when you have limited square meters, how do you maximize every second where you can engage with the traveler, making sure the fastest way also to manage exceptions, and the impact has been amazing in terms of the operation. Now it takes you 4 seconds to cross the border in this airport.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. So one of the other push factors that the industry is going to experience, and this isn't going to go away very soon, is the need to operate more sustainably. So if you're more efficient, you're naturally more sustainable. We know the industry is going to suffer. Well, it's going to struggle in terms of fuel burn. We're going to be burning fuel for a long time to come. But if the industry is able to make everything else around that as sustainable as it possibly can be, then it's got a better prospect for the future, and good governmental and regulations and so on. So this is key for that as well, isn't it?
Definitely. We are very focused on the sustainability part, very keen to contribute to the net zero carbon initiatives in many places, following the commitment of most of the governments and airports we are working with. It's a daisy chain. Every detail you contribute to will have an environmental impact in a positive way. The faster the plane can turn around, the less fuel and you will burn, and CO2, etc., etc. The machines we are using, going to the cloud rather than to being on premises, being more digital in the IT infrastructure, less heavy infrastructure consumers, smaller devices, smaller touch points, less print on the floor. Everything has a play, and we are very focused, as we are, into accessibility, being inclusive, to make sure the human factor is managed, because at the end, the most complex part is ourselves, the human being, right? And that the less predictable element of the equation. So we are trying really to create all the conditions to deliver benefits to everyone and manage that unpredictable element, which is the human being in the middle.
Yeah. A final thought before you finish. Our time's nearly up, and we talked about unpredictability, but I guess one thing you can predict at the minute is demand for air travel is only going to go in one direction. We began this by talking about COVID, where there was zero demand, or just about zero. Today, the demand is so high. One of the reasons we're talking about technology and predictive and so on is that we're trying to cope with demand that's difficult to actually cope with, because supply is constrained. And you said Curacao is a great example. They're not suddenly going to have another terminal or more capacity to deal with the demand. But that's true of many airports around the world. It's on a much higher scale and level and volume. So do you do you see that as being something that's going to continue now for the foreseeable future? That it's going to be a question of how we do more with what we've got currently, because the demand is simply there for the industry to cope with.
Doing much more with less, even much less, is the ultimate goal. I was at the ICAO in Montreal last week for the Traveler Identification Program Symposium, and 12 billion people will board a plane in 2050.
Yeah.
8 billion by 2034. How do we deal with it? We cannot build endless infrastructure, even though some countries in high developing phase like India, China are building airports like mushrooms, which is a necessity. They don't have a choice. But other geographies, other places won't be able to cope. So again, how do we maximize, optimize, streamline, but still keep it very human? That's the whole challenge. It's not anymore about security, facilitation. It's really about maximizing the entire estate and doing as much as we can off airport. Multimodal. We are entering into the maritime sector, working with MSC Cruises, for example, in Miami. We've just delivered the first biometric end-to-end cruise terminal. But it starts at home. It starts with the flight you take, the airport to go to the cruise. So we are working with the entire sector to look at this from a more integrated fashion. Again, because it's collaboration. It's nice to say, but the reality, like the Dutch say, the proof is in the pudding, and we are proving that pudding every day right now. It's amazing.
Yeah. Jeff, look, our time is up, but that's been really interesting to speak to you about what looks like a fast approaching future. And I think anyone who travels, the idea of 15 minutes from border control to beach sounds fantastic. And I think all travellers will applaud any industry or anyone who plays a part in making that a reality. And we know that Amadeus will be very much in part of that. Good luck to the future. We'll keep an eye on developments, and I'm sure we'll speak again about this in coming years. So thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Lee.
Cheers.